In a colorful town called Sweetville, there lived a boy named Jack. He lived with his aunt, who didn't treat him well. Sweetville was a town filled with vibrant houses, and everyone knew that Jack had a big love for one thing: the delicious apple pies made by Mrs. Cindy. Every day after school, Jack used to visit Mrs. Cindy's bakery. One day, he was standing in front of the bakery, pressing his little nose against the glass window, gazing at the rows of delicious pies. His eyes fixated on a freshly baked apple pie. His mouth watered at the thought of taking a big, sweet bite. Mrs. Cindy was a kind-hearted lady. She was noticing Jack, and she knew that how much he loved her pies. "Good morning, Mrs. Cindy," Jack greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Jack," she replied, already knowing what was on his mind. "Would you like a slice of my freshly baked apple pie?" Jack's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Yes, please." His enthusiasm faded, and a look of disappointment crossed his face, as he remembered that he didn't have enough money. Mrs. Cindy saw the change in Jack's expression. She smiled kindly and said, "Don't worry, Jack, you can have a free slice today." Jack's joy returned. He received the pie with thankful eyes and enjoyed every bite of the delicious pie. But that night, as he was laying in his bed, a thought crossed his mind. What if he didn't have money next day? Would Mrs. Cindy still give him free pie? An idea started to form. He decided to sneak into the bakery and take as many pies as he wanted for himself. Jack got out of the bed, took a shopping bag from his closet, and quietly tiptoed out of his house and made his way to Mrs. Cindy's bakery. The streets of Sweetville were peaceful at night, and the stars were shining brightly above. When he arrived, he started finding a way to get inside the bakery. He took a round around the bakery and was surprised to see that the bakery's back door was unlocked. Jack couldn't believe his luck. He quietly stepped inside, careful not to make a sound. As he entered the bakery, he glanced around to make sure no one was watching him. The aroma of pies filled the air. Jack couldn't resist as he saw rows and rows of pies on the shelves. He began stuffing pies into his shopping bag, one after another. Apple pies, cherry pies, blueberry pies, and even some custard pies. His shopping bag grew heavier and heavier with each pie he added. But just as he was about to leave, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Jack, what are you doing?" He turned around, and there stood Mrs. Cindy, her gentle eyes filled with surprise. Jack felt a rush of shame and fear as he realized he had been caught. In his nervousness, he stumbled, and accidentally his bag of stolen pies slipped from his grasp, spilling pies all over the floor. Jack's face turned red with embarrassment. I was just, borrowing some pies," Jack stammered. "Well, Jack, you could have just asked for more pies. I would have been happy to give you some. I understand how tempting pies can be, but it's always better to ask for what you want, instead of taking it without permission," said Mrs. Cindy. Jack's heart sank even lower as he realized how wrong he had been. He felt terrible for disappointing someone he admired so much. With a heavy heart, he apologized to Mrs. Cindy, tears filling his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Cindy. I should have never done this. You're right, I should have asked." As he was ashamed of what he did, Mrs. Cindy forgave him and asked him to put the pies back on the shelves. Jack couldn't sleep whole night and kept on thinking that how he will face Mrs. Cindy. The next day, Jack visited Mrs. Cindy, and this time he gathered his courage and said, "Mrs. Cindy, I love your pies, but I can't always afford them. Will it be okay if I can help you at the bakery after school? And in return, you will give me a slice of pie?" Mrs. Cindy's eyes twinkled with warmth as she agreed to Jack's proposal. From that day onward, Jack learned the value of honesty and hard work, and he cherished every slice of pie he earned. Remember, kids, the story teaches us to be honest, ask for help, and work hard instead of taking the wrong path. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more exciting stories.